Hello and welcome to History Through Time with Miss Tracy. Today we're going to talk about the Middle Ages. The previous video was talking about the Romans. So things to remember with the Middle Ages is that it got a lot worse. So medicine, public health all went backwards. So the Romans left. The reason why the Romans had to leave was because Rome was invaded by the Goths. So the Romans pulled all their army out of Britain, and this led to people really not knowing what to do. Romans were engineers, and they had built all the public health systems, but had actually never trained anyone how to actually maintain it. So it came to this point where a lot of people in Britain were fighting, and there were a lot of small kingdoms warring against each other. So there was no funding to maintain the public health systems. This led to a lot of people moving out of the towns and cities, and the public health systems as we knew it in the Roman times falling into disrepair and disuse. They did still, however, have some sort of public bath. They had something called stews, but they were a lot smaller and obviously weren't maintained as well. They also did have public toilets, but these were placed over things like rivers, so not really good for public health. The church's influence grew massively during this time. They did not like dissections in the slightest, and all the training that was done in the monasteries. There was a lot of reading. That's where all the training was, reading. Obviously, going back to the main man, Galen, at this stage. So all people's medical training and knowledge was based on Galen. In terms of healers, you did have lots of different ones. So we moved from father of the household looking after people to now in the Middle Ages it being the mother. You also had barber surgeons, job where they obviously not only cut your hair, but also if you needed to have some bloodlet, they would do some bloodletting for you. There were also the physicians. These people were the ones who were normally trained up through reading books and would consult two different types of charts, the urine and the zodiac, to find out how to treat you or what illnesses you might be facing. In terms of big diseases during this time, the Black Death is a big one. So 1348 is the key date where the plague struck. A third of population was killed. Many people started going for more supernatural causes at this time. With the Romans, it was more logical, based on things like miasma, the four humours. That still continued in the Middle Ages, but now we started seeing more bizarre ideas coming along. So people thought it was the planets not being in the right alignment at the time. People said it could be to do with the zodiac signs. People thought it was to do with the Jewish witches, different animals, volcanoes, so bad air fumes from the volcanoes. There were tons of different causes of disease during this time. Very few, as we know today, to be correct. With that in mind, people tried various different treatments. One of the biggest ones being praying, fasting, whipping. The flagellants would be the people who would whip themselves to show that they were sorry for what they'd done and the sins that they had caused. This is also to do with the idea that God had given that as a punishment. That links into the church. The church was also mainly focused on caring, not curing. So in the monasteries, you might have the beds facing the altars. You'd be given fresh food, rest and diet, but they wouldn't try and cure you because their belief was that God had given you this disease or illness as punishment for a sin you had committed. With the Black Death, we know that they tried to heal themselves. Big one is if they had a bubo under your armpit, they might put some bread on there, okay, to try and drain the pus, and they bury the bread. Hopefully that would get rid of the disease. It didn't work really. If it did, then clearly there was something else in play. Also, they would avoid certain people. They put big crosses above the door. They'd have the plague doctors and plague pits to burn people if they were dead. That's it for the Middle Ages as far as I'm aware at the moment. If there's anything else, I will update this. Thank you for listening. Bye.